Bangladesh witnessed another round of anti-India demonstrations, with agitators marching towards India's mission in Rajshahi, forcing it to shut operations for the day along with services at two visa centers. And viewers, this is not the first time that such an incident has happened in Bangladesh. Dhaka has seen a series of demonstrations by different groups in the past few days, all targeting Indian missions. More about this in our next report.
India has temporarily closed its visa application centers in Rajshahi and Khulna. This a day after radical Islamist groups held protests near the Indian High Commission in Dhaka. The protest was organized under the banner of Julai Oikea, with demonstrators raising provocative demands. The closures come amid New Delhi's growing concern over what it describes as a surge in open anti-India sentiment, especially targeting India's northeastern states under Bangladesh's interim administration. Radical voices aligned with the National Citizens Party, an offshoot of the student protest that brought down the Awami League government, have issued inflammatory threats, including calls to sever India's seven sisters and expel the Indian High Commissioner. Bangladesh's Foreign Affairs Advisor, Tauheed Hossain, has attempted to distance the government from these remarks, denying any breakdown of law and order and dismissing India's concerns. Despite repeated assurances, radical groups continue to organize anti-India demonstrations in Dhaka and elsewhere. India, meanwhile, has urged the interim government to ensure peaceful elections and restore democratic governance. In a statement, the Ministry of External Affairs said it expects Bangladesh to take all necessary measures to maintain law and order and facilitate elections that reflect the will of the people. However, the Yunus-led interim government has rejected India's advice, calling it unnecessary and unacceptable. Observers warn that radical groups backing the interim setup may attempt to delay elections by creating instability and portraying India as a scapegoat. A prolonged delay would allow the unelected interim government to remain in power beyond February, raising concerns over democratic legitimacy and regional stability. India for now continues to maintain a measured diplomatic response, even as statements emerging from Bangladesh challenge its sovereignty and territorial integrity. NDTV Bureau Report.
Let's now tell you what led to the Bangladesh unrest, the transition of the government there in Dhaka. Number one, weeks of anti-government demonstrations earlier this year, that's in the month of July. The demonstrations were not just against the former leader, Sheikh Hasina, but also against job quotas there. The demand of all these agitators was abolish quotas in civil service jobs. Back then, that's in June-July period in 2025, 300 people were killed in the massive unrest, and these were all stepping stones that led to massive unrest in Bangladesh. The demonstrations then spiraled into campaign for Hasina's resignation. Hasina's government blamed for violence, and Hasina also blamed Islamist Jamaat-e-Islami and BNP, the opposition party back then, for clashes in Bangladesh. And it was finally on August 5th that Hasina resigned and fled Bangladesh. And well, to talk more on all that is happening in Bangladesh, my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul is joining me live. Aditya, there has been a situation right now created in Dhaka after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina. We've seen anti-India protest, not just in Dhaka, in Rajshahi as well. What is happening? And do you think that Bangladesh is now India's biggest strategic challenge since 1971?
Well, it does seem like that it's a massive challenge for India, but it's not because of India's actions. It's because of actions that have happened within Bangladesh. It's an internal turmoil that they haven't been able to control, and they haven't been able to restore democracy fully. And the blame lies squarely on Mohammed Yunus, because what has happened over the last many days is that there have been threats, there has been abuse, there has been violent mayhem against India, against India's High Commission, diplomatic mission, and diplomats. Yesterday in Dhaka, there was a violent protest by radical groups, radical Islamist groups against the Indian High Commission that was controlled by the security forces. Otherwise, there could have been complete mayhem and destruction. Today, in Khulna and in Rajshahi, which is the assistant high commissions of India, similar to consulates, there as well, there were similar violent protests that were witnessed. Now, who is behind these protests? There's a July uprising bunch, which is part of the so-called students groups and the radical groups together. Perhaps there is a backing of the Jamaat-e-Islami elements as well. But we should have no doubt that this is being done on the directions and the approval of Mohammed Yunus, who is the chief advisor, because there's no control, there's no leash that has been put on these radical elements. And tomorrow, God knows what will happen. Yesterday, the Indian government had summoned the Bangladeshi High Commissioner to New Delhi, but doesn't seem like that no lessons have been learned, no changes in policy by the Bangladeshi government, and situation can turn around. There are some significant developments that are being witnessed, including threats against India, that within the next 72 hours or by the 25th of December, if there's no action, then there will be more escalation in violence.
Right, Aditya, like you also clearly pointed out that Bangladesh at this point of time cannot really control what's happening inside its own country. In your analysis, Aditya, do you think that the political transition in Dhaka could reshape India's security and the kind of influence that China and Pakistan, both these countries, have on Dhaka at this point of time?
Well, Raisha, for a very long time, ever since the so-called July-August uprising, when Sheikh Hasina was violently ousted, there were reports in the Russian media and the Bangladeshi press and also all across the social media that it was the US which was behind the so-called regime change in Dhaka. But today, it almost seems like that Mohammed Yunus has either succumbed under pressure or given an open field, a long rope to elements such as the Jamaat-e-Islami, the Islamist radicals, and perhaps even the Pakistani deep state. Because Bangladesh traditionally and historically was the biggest partner of India. In fact, it was India and India's government that led to the creation of the Bangladeshi state itself. And they should be thankful to us. But instead, there is a certain section of the society that is provoking and blaming India for so-called violence and changes in Bangladesh. They do not seem to be returning to democracy, but instead blame game against India, which is not going to help anyone. Now, the common people in Bangladesh are not in favor of that. But there's a certain section that initially, after the uprising, attacked the Hindus, the Christians, and the Ahmadiyas. They attacked the Awami League members as well. And now they are trying and inching closer to attack Indian diplomats and Indian missions.
Right, absolutely, Aditya. We'll have to wait until the situation pans out there in Dhaka, but thanks for getting us the latest on this. Staying on with stories from Bangladesh now, a parliamentary standing committee on external affairs in India has warned that the evolving political situation in Dhaka now represents India's most serious strategic challenge since 1971 war. The report, which was tabled in Parliament by the Shashi Tharoor-chaired committee, draws on inputs from government officials and non-governmental experts. It perhaps reflects growing concern in New Delhi over a slew of factors that it has listed in that report. Number one, political instability in Dhaka. Number two, the return of Islamist forces. Number three, expanding influence of China and Pakistan in India's immediate neighborhood, that is Bangladesh. The panel then further made it clear that the situation in Bangladesh is fundamentally different from 1971. While there is perhaps no direct military threat to India's sovereignty, the committee said that the challenge lies in the long-term strategic consequences of Bangladesh's political transition and also changing external alignments. The panel raised a slew of issues, a slew of factors, pointing out where Bangladesh stands today and how it affects India. It also laments that how whatever is happening in Bangladesh could reshape India's security environment, especially along its eastern flank. That is, if it is left unchecked. Let's now take you through all the key highlights of the parliamentary panel, which has flagged Bangladesh's threat towards India. Number one, rise of extremism, which has impacted bilateral engagement between New Delhi and Dhaka. Then moving on, the next segment is ensure Bangladesh does not become safe haven for anti-India groups in Northeast. Not just that, the panel also highlighted how persistent anti-India rhetoric has been doing the rounds in Bangladeshi media. There are also concerns over expanding China footprint in Bangladesh. All these issues have been highlighted in that report. Growing Pakistan ties could weaken India's influence in Dhaka as well. Not just Pakistan, it also talks about how China's role in Bangladesh port development and defense sector, and how China is also somewhat having a strong control over Dhaka. Important to safeguard national security, that is at Siliguri corridor and Bay of Bengal. All this while there's growing influence of Pakistan and China on Bangladesh. And lastly, the last point of the panel is shifting ties could weaken India's strategic interests in South Asia.